Water, earth, fire and air, 4 elements that only Avatar Aang can manipulate. In this video we're going to speed through Avatar The Last Airbender, and it won't just be the basics. We're going to crack some serious unsolved mysteries too. I mean, did Katara and Aang have some sweet romance going on? And hey, just how many kinds of bending are we talking about here? Ever wondered who the first Avatar was, and how in the world did they get all that power? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Plus, we're going to spill the beans on why Uncle Iroh, older and wiser, didn't snag the title of Fire Lord instead of Ozai. And no recap is complete without some family drama, so we're also going to unravel the knots in Avatar Aang's family tree, who married who and who gave birth to who. We've got 3 seasons and 61 episodes to chew through, so grab your favourite drink, sit back and get ready for a trip down memory lane. Let's begin by introducing the world of Avatar, a realm divided into 4 distinct regions, each inhabited by a unique class of benders: the Earth Kingdom, the Water Tribe, the Air Nomads and the Fire Nation. Next up, let's delve into the historical tensions between these kingdoms and the role of the Avatars. In the olden days, 2 close-knit firebenders, Roku and Sozin, took divergent paths. Sozin ascended as the Fire Lord, while Roku embraced his destiny as the new Avatar. When Sozin proposed a plan for world domination, Roku rebuffed him, sparking a fierce showdown between the two, from which Roku emerged victorious. Disaster struck when a volcano erupted near Roku's city. Despite their differences, Suzin arrived to help Roku combat the volcanic menace, only to betray him at the last minute, leaving Roku to breathe in lethal volcanic gases and meet his untimely end. The Avatar's spirit was reborn in a new vessel, a young airbender named Aang. Struggling with the weighty revelation of his Avatar identity, Aang fled from his clan, only to get caught in a violent storm and end up frozen in the sea for a whole century. Fast forward 100 years later, the world was unrecognizable. Suzin was long gone, as was his successor. Now the throne was occupied by the ruthless Fire Lord Ozai, setting the stage for a new era of conflict. His rule began with a tragedy when he banished his own son, Zuko, scarring his face in the process, all because Zuko dared to speak up during a meeting. This event ignited Zuko's relentless quest alongside his wise uncle Iroh to locate and capture the newly revived Avatar. The goal? To present Aang to his father and reclaim his lost honor and place in the Fire Nation. Sokka and Katara are out fishing when they stumble upon a peculiar iceberg. As they wrangle with the iceberg, a luminescent mass of ice reveals Aang, who abruptly breaks free. Quickly warming up to Sokka and Katara, Aang travels back with them to their tribe and bonds over games and stories. However, the fun is short-lived as Aang discovers the remnants of a Fire Nation ship, a relic from the vicious attack on the North Pole a century ago. The sight triggers the horrifying realization that he has been absent for a full 100 years. Coincidentally, Zuko, in his relentless search, discovers the Avatar's location, setting up their first encounter. Aang stands his ground and overcomes Zuko. Inspired by his bravery, Katara and Sokka decide to accompany Aang on his journey. Their first stop? Aang's homeland. What greets them there is a poignant sight. Sozin had annihilated all the airbenders while in pursuit of the new Avatar a century ago. With the heavy truth sinking in, Aang comes to the devastating conclusion that he is the last of his kind. This intense surge of anger and sorrow triggers his transformation into the Avatar state. Somewhere else, Commander Zeo learns of the Avatar's return and now vies with Zuko to capture him first. Meanwhile, the Avatar's global journey to his destination isn't a smooth ride. It's peppered with hurdles and diversions. Let's dive into a few of these episodes. At one point, they encounter the Kyoshi warriors. When the warriors discover Aang's Avatar identity, Zuko attacks their village, but Aang comes to the rescue, saving the warriors and liberating the city. After this, Aang decides to pay a visit to his old friend, Bumi, in the city of Amashu, home to Earthbenders. After a century, though, Bumi is no longer the friend young Aang remembers. He's an aged man now, but still a formidable fighter. Their next stop? a village of Earthbenders are pressed by the Fire Nation. Their team rolls up their sleeves, ready to liberate the villagers. Aang finds himself in a sticky situation with the High Bay Spirit and has no choice but to venture into the spirit world to stop the High Bay monster. Inside, he finds someone waiting to talk to him. It's Avatar Roku. Upon reaching Roku's home, a Fire Nation stronghold, Aang learns he can only communicate with Roku at a specific time. Aang dashes back to the physical world, rescuing his friends from the Hebei monsters before diving back to continue his conversation with Roku. Meanwhile, Commander Zhao and Prince Zoku are hot on their trail. Reaching Roku proves to be a struggle for Aang. Once there, Roku delivers a grim prediction. By summer's end, a comet that soars past every century will be back. This comet supercharges all firebenders. The race against time begins. Aang must defeat the Fire Lord before the comet's arrival. With Roku's assistance, Aang manages to escape the Fire Lord's island. After brushing up on his waterbending skills with Katara's help, and while getting a firebending lesson from a Fire Nation defector, Aang falls into Commander Zhao's clutches. Zuko, however, in disguise, springs Aang free, with the hope of capturing the Avatar himself. Following many adventures, encounters with new allies, and a host of challenges, they finally reach the Winter Water Tribes. Here, Aang and Katara can unlock the full potential of their waterbending skills, but their training is abruptly interrupted when Commander Zhao attacks on the second day, with Zuko and his uncle close behind. As the full moon swells, intensifying the waterbenders' powers, the siege on the Water Tribe continues. Aang retreats to the Spirit Oasis to commune with the spirit world, hoping to find wisdom that might help repel the invasion. There he encounters the Face Stealer, who informs him of Zhao's plans to extinguish the moon's spirit, effectively snuffing out the moon and crippling the waterbenders' power. Elsewhere, Zuko manages to capture Aang while he's linked to the spirit world, despite Katara's best efforts to guard him. Aang returns from the spirit world too late. Zhao has already slain the moon's spirit, and with Katara and Sokka's assistance, they manage to rescue Aang from Zuko. Even Uncle Iroh attempts to deter Zhao, understanding that the moon is critical to everyone's well-being. However, the sight of the vanished moon triggers Aang's rage. In his avatar state, Aang vanquishes the Fire Nation soldiers. Meanwhile, Zuko engages Zhao in combat. Zhao finds himself overpowered and is ultimately slain by the vengeful Avatar. In a selfless act, Prince Yu sacrifices her soul to the moon spirit, restoring the moon to its rightful place in the sky. The moon is back, but Sokka loses Yu, his beloved whom he had met earlier in the Water Tribe. This marks the first appearance of Princess Azula, Fire Lord Ozai's daughter. Tasked with capturing the Avatar, as well as her fugitive brother and uncle, she proves to be a formidable adversary. However, her plan to ensnare Zuko and Iroh fails, forcing the pair to go incognito. Still wrestling with his internal conflict, Zuko contemplates seizing the Avatar to regain his father's approval. Aang set off to learn earthbending from his friend Bumi, but arrived to find that Azula had seized Omashu. Adding Ty Lee and Mei to her team, Azula presented a stronger front. Aang engaged Azula in his first battle, successfully liberating the Earthbenders. Bumi, however, chose not to resist the Fire Nation, opting to bide his time for the right moment to strike back. A visit to an earthbending tournament introduced Aang to Toph. After a lot of convincing, Toph agreed to teach him earthbending and left her family to journey with Aang. Meanwhile, Azula was hot on Aang's trail, using shed fur from Appa, his sky bison, as a tracking device. Not far behind, Zuko was also pursuing Aang. The three forces met in a massive confrontation that ended in a stalemate. Their journey brought them to a desert library where Aang learned about the date of the upcoming solar eclipse, a day when all firebenders lose their powers. Unfortunately, during their visit, Appa was abducted. Aang found out who had taken Appa and began a mission to recover his friend, while also aiming to inform the Earth King about the impending solar eclipse. This would allow them to launch a joint attack on the Fire Lord while his powers were diminished. As Aang ventured forth, the Fire Nation shadowed his every step. With clever planning, he managed to outmaneuver Azula's forces. all while Zuko and his uncle Ira had set up shop in the same city, running a tea shop. Eventually, Aang was reunited with Apple in Ba Sing Se, and the Earth King agreed to join him in the upcoming battle. In the midst of these challenges, Aang received a message instructing him to meet a guru who could help him control the Avatar state. At this juncture, Team Avatar split up. Sokka and Katara received a tip about their father's whereabouts, while Toph was said to believe her parents were in Ba Sing Se. However, Toph's message was a ruse by her father, who had dispatched a group of Earthbenders to bring her home. Undeterred, Toph successfully escaped their grasp. Sokka was joyfully reunited with his father after years of separation, while Katara stayed close to the Earth King to keep him safe. You might remember the Kyoshi warriors. Azula and her team imprisoned these warriors to gain the Earth King's trust. The unsuspecting king revealed Aang's solar eclipse plan to them. In a surprising turn of events, Katara discovered Zuko and Ira's presence in the city. However, on her way to alert the Earth King, Azula captured Katara. This discovery allowed Azula to realize that her brother was in the same city. Azula cleverly forged an alliance with Long Feng, the Earth King's right-hand man, to overthrow the king, leveraging her newfound knowledge about Zuko and Ira. Azula sent them an invitation, apparently from the Earth King, to serve tea. This deceptive strategy enabled Azula to capture Zuko, detaining him underground alongside Katara. Aang arrived at the Guru's location and began his lessons on controlling the Avatar state. However, sensing that Katara was in danger, Aang cut his training short and rushed back to Ba Sing Se with Sokka and Toph. In the meantime, Ira had managed to escape from Azula and decided to team up with Aang's group, providing them with important information about the capture of Katara and Zuko. Armed with this knowledge, Aang and Ira went to rescue the captives while Toph and Sokka sought to inform the Earth King of Azula's deception. Their mission was thwarted, however, and they were captured along with the king. Aang found Katara underground but was ambushed by Azula, who was able to persuade Zuko to join her in battle against the Avatar. Sensing the threat, Aang chose to abandon the fight in order to enter the Avatar state. His efforts were successful, but Azula struck him with a lightning blast, causing him to fall to the ground. Recognizing the severity of the situation, Ira defended Aang and Katara against his own family, allowing them enough time to escape. Toph and the Earth King managed to escape as well, but their victory was short-lived as the Earth Kingdom fell to Azula's forces. This marked the end of the second season, with our heroes escaping from Ba Sing Se. As the third season begins, Zuko and Azula return to the Fire Lord. Azula tells her father that Zuko had killed the Avatar. However, Zuko doubts whether or not Aang was truly killed, suspecting that he might still be alive. His suspicions were correct, as Aang managed to recover and chose to remain hidden until the time of the solar eclipse. Meanwhile, Ira was imprisoned in the Fire Nation, branded as a traitor. The eclipse finally arrived and all of Aang's allies assembled for an all-out assault on the Fire Nation. While they did face some hiccups, they ultimately succeeded in penetrating the Fire Nation's defenses. The Fire Lord was no fool and took refuge underground. However, with Toph's earthbending skills, they were able to locate his hideout, yet there were only 5 minutes left of the eclipse. Meanwhile, Zuko decided to confront his father, confessing that he had not killed the Avatar and that he intended to join Aang in overthrowing him. As the eclipse ended, the Fire Lord retaliated, forcing Zuko to narrowly escape with his life. Amidst the chaos, Ira managed to break free from his prison. Aang's attempt to reach the Fire Lord was stalled by Azula, leading to a failure in seizing the opportunity the eclipse provided. As a result, Aang's allies urged him to flee, promising to cover his escape. In the midst of the escape, Bumi, who you might recall from earlier, capitalized on the event to liberate his city from Fire Nation occupation. After the failed assault, Aang retreated to the Eastern Air Temple, while Zuko decided to leave the Fire Nation to join Aang and offer his knowledge of firebending. However, a challenge arose when Zuko discovered he had lost his firebending ability, which he could no longer fuel with anger. Recognizing that the true mastery of firebending was not fueled by anger, Aang and Zuko sought the guidance of the original firebending masters, Ran and Shaw. Thus, both Aang and Zuko became authentic firebenders. Sokka was determined not to leave his father in the clutches of the Fire Nation, so they persuaded Zuko to join him in an attempt to liberate his father from the Fire Nation prison. They headed to the Boiling Rock prison where, to their surprise, they found Suki, a Kyoshi warrior, with whom Sokka shared romantic feelings. They also found Sokka's father. The turncoat duo, Ty Lee and Mei, Zuko's former lover, went against Azula and assisted them in escaping from the prison. True to form, Azula tracked down Aang's location, but Zuko was successful in diverting her attention, allowing the group to flee and set up camp elsewhere. Meanwhile, the Fire Lord was patiently awaiting the arrival of Sozin's comet, which would grant firebenders the power of 100 suns. His plan was to use the power to incinerate Ba Sing Se and exterminate all earthbenders, thereby making him the supreme ruler of the world. Zuko, having been privy to his father's plot while he was still in the Fire Nation, informed Aang that it was imperative to defeat the Fire Lord before the arrival of Sozin's comet, hence they began preparations for the monumental task ahead. As the comet made its appearance, the Fire Lord embarked on his journey to Ba Sing Se, leaving Azula behind in the Fire Nation to guard it. At this point, Aang's team split up. Katara and Zuko journeyed to the Fire Nation to confront Azula and reclaim Zuko's throne, while Aang, Sokka, Toph and Suki pursued the Fire Lord to Ba Sing Se to put an end to him and his airships. However, they needed to move swiftly before Sozin's comet arrived in full force. Uncle Iroh, Bumi and other familiar faces were already hard at work defending Ba Sing Se when Aang and the team arrived. It was time to face the Fire Lord. As Aang faced off against his biggest enemy, Sokka and Toph showed their skills, halting Fire Nation airships in their tracks. Meanwhile, Katara and Zuko had reached the Fire Nation and were preparing to confront Azula. In a tragic twist, Zuko took a hit from lightning as he shielded Katara, leaving her to continue the fight alone. But Katara didn't let us down. With a brilliant strategy, she overpowered and restrained the increasingly unstable Azula. In the meantime, Uncle Iroh did his share, beating firebenders with some help from his friends. Sozin's comet appeared in the sky. We held our breath. Its arrival was expected to increase the Fire Lord's power to an unbeatable level. But just when we thought it was over for Aang, he slipped into the Avatar state and began to control the fight. Instead of killing the Fire Lord when he had the chance, Aang made a different choice. He was provoked more than once by the Fire Lord, but Aang leveraged the unique skill he learned from the Lion Turtle to strip the Fire Lord of his bending powers. In the aftermath, Katara and Sokka were finally reunited with their father. Ty Lee found her place among the Kyoshi warriors and pursued a career as a healer. Zuko, now a hero, returned to his love, Mei, and assumed his position as the ruler of the Fire Nation. And, as he did, all the benders cheered for Avatar Aang. As for Uncle Iroh, he achieved his dream of running a tea shop. And so we wrap up our recap of the thrilling first 3 seasons. The creators of Avatar Aang left us with a few cliffhangers, didn't they? One big mystery was the whereabouts of Zuko's mother. While the TV show wrapped up after Season 3, there's more to the story in the comics. Let's dive into that. In the last season of the show, we learned that Ursa, Zuko's mom, struck a deal to save Zuko's life when Ozai, Zuko's dad, had plans to kill him. However, the truth turned out to be a bit different. Ursa was actually banished. But why? Here's what happened. In her younger days, Ursa was in love with a guy named Ikkum, also from the Fire Nation. The day Ikkum popped the question, the Fire Lord Azulon and his son named Ozai showed up at Ursa's home. They were there because Azulon had heard a prophecy, marrying a descendant of Avatar Roku would yield powerful children. Since Ursa's grandpa was Roku, Azulon decided that Ozai should marry Ursa, even though she was already engaged to Ikkum. So Ozai and Ursa tied the knot, and they had 2 kids, Azula and Zuko. When Zuko was still young, his cousin, Lu Ten, Iroh's only son, died. After Lu Ten's death, Ozai saw an opportunity and asked his dad, the Fire Lord, if he could be the heir to the throne instead of his grieving brother Iroh. Azulon was furious at Ozai's request and ordered him to kill Zuko so he would know what losing a son feels like. And, unbeknownst to Ozai and Azulon, Azula and Zuko overheard their conversation. When Ursa learned about the plot to kill Zuko, she came up with a plan to save her son's life. She agreed to help Ozai poison his dad, Fire Lord Azulon, so that Ozai could seize the throne. However, Ozai demanded that Ursa leave the Fire Nation out of fear that she might use poison against him as well. So Ursa went back to her village, where she reconnected with Noren, who was actually her first love, Ikem. Here's where it gets a bit weird. Ikem had made a deal with a spirit named the Mother of Faces to change his appearance and identity to escape Ozai's wrath, as he'd been sending Ursa letters during her marriage. Ursa made the same deal, and she started a new life with Noren now as Noriko, with no memories of her past. They even had a child together, Kie. Many years later, Zuko bumped into Noriko and Noren, clueless that they were his mother, Ursa, and Ikem. He found out the truth from the Mother of Faces and raced back to tell his mom that he was her son. After a bit of a row, Ursa decided to regain her old face and memories, so Ursa and Zuko were finally reunited. As for Azula, she wasn't handling things so well. She blamed her mom for all her hardships, and it pushed her over the edge, as we saw in the last episode of the show. Now, this story does have a few holes, like how could Ursa remember Ikem after losing her memory? But let's roll with it for now. And speaking of memories, remember the lion turtle that taught Aang how to take away a person's bending abilities? This lion turtle played a role in the story of the very first Avatar. Thousands of years ago, there was a guy named Wan. He lived in poverty on the back of a lion turtle and dreamt of finding a way to gain power. The lion turtle granted him the ability to firebend, and he used this power to protect the spirits and drive off hostile humans from the wilds. Wan's journey to harness all of the bending abilities began then. During his travels, he stumbled upon Vatu and Rava, two spirits locked in battle, and he managed to free Rava. Rava explained that Vatu was a malicious spirit bent on destruction, so Rava decided to help Wan collect all the elements from the lion turtles to defeat Vatu. With Rava's help, Wan became the first Avatar capable of bending all 4 elements, and he defeated Vatu by entering the Avatar state. When Wan passed away, the spirit of the Avatar was reborn in a new person. So did Aang and Katara end up together? Yes, they did. After defeating the Fire Lord, we saw Aang and Katara sharing a kiss, confirming their love. They eventually got hitched and had 3 kids, Buma, Kia, and Tenzin. Tenzin later married Pima, and together they had 4 kids, Rohan, Janora, Ikki, and Milo. Toph also settled down. She married a man named Kanto, and they had a daughter, Lin Beifong. Later she had another child, Suyin Beifong, with a different guy whose identity remains unknown. Suyin went on to marry Bata, giving Toph 5 grandkids, Bata Jr., Opal, Huan, Wei, and Wing. Zuko ended up with Mei, and they had a daughter, Izumi. Izumi gave Zuko a grandchild, Iroh. Okay, that covers the family trees. But since we're talking about our favourite characters, it's impossible to ignore the extraordinary bending variations they introduced. Take for instance Toph's groundbreaking discovery of metal bending. Born from her unique connection to earth bending, Toph discovered she could bend the tiny fragments of earth within metal, revolutionising the bending world and later founding an entire academy to teach this skill. On the other side of the spectrum, we had the chilling introduction of bloodbending. A disturbing subset of waterbending, bloodbending allows the bender to manipulate the water living within organisms. It's a highly controversial and ethically questionable skill that added a unique dimension to the show's diverse array of abilities. These creative additions to the bending roster brought a depth and complexity to the Avatar universe that kept us on the edge of our seats. As for my final thoughts on the show as a whole, it certainly gets a stellar 9 out of 10 rating from me. It's a delightful blend of vibrant characters, enthralling narratives, and a magnificent fusion of humour and elemental magic. With that, we conclude our recap of this amazing story. If this comprehensive rundown struck a chord with you, don't hesitate to smash that like button and share this journey with your fellow Avatar fans. And if you haven't done so already, please remember to subscribe to our channel for more reviews and recaps like this one, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest releases. Your support enables us to create more content for you, and we're truly grateful for it. Thank you for joining us on this ride, and we'll see you in the next adventure.